You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live. Hello, welcome to Garibaldi Red for a second episode of this week as we're joined by a special guest ahead of the West Ham game in the shape of Forest first team coach Jamie Robinson, one of the new people who've joined the club over the summer. Jamie, great to have you with us. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks, Matt. Nice to see you.
Yes, you too. How are you settling in at Forest? Has it been a bit of a whirlwind, or are you feeling like you're all part of the furniture now?
A bit of both, really. I mean, I certainly don't feel like the new boy because I spent a bit of time over here last season. Obviously known Steve Cooper for many, many years. So that doesn't feel new. Certainly the surroundings. We were talking before we started this about Nick Marshall in the academy days. My dealing sort of in a previous role for the FA or as a PFA regional coach used to come over here quite regular. So it feels pretty familiar surroundings. Obviously the people are different from in this era than what's been in previous eras. So it's been really good and really exciting. Really good people. Just an exciting time.
Before we go into your playing career and your road here, I mean, what is your role at Forest? I know Steve has this very loose hierarchy where there's no assistant manager. It's all very collaborative. Are you on the grass training players day in, day out, or are you doing something slightly different?
No, I'm on the grass every day. So I'm one of, I suppose, with myself, Alan Tate, Andy Reid, Danny Alcock, Dave Tivy, fitness coach, and Steve and myself, the coaching team. I think in the modern era, I think you need lots of pairs of hands around the players. I think what's required from working with individual units of the team is it's a big job these days. And I think Steve and the No Illusions are sort of kind of modern look that team needs to shape, how it needs to look and how that needs to take shape. Obviously, then you need cohesion and people need to be different and offer different things to different players and different units in the different team. And I think we're trying to piece that together to have a cohesive, forward-thinking, progressive sort of coaching team. That's the setup. And then we play to our strengths. So I'll obviously work with the coaches a bit more on maybe the design of their practices and what we're trying to piece together. And Steve's obviously a fantastic man manager. Tatey's a brilliant sort of defensive coach with a defensive mind. And as you know from Reedy's playing career, fantastic creative player who's someone that we want to have his eye on our sort of attacking play and some of the individuals try and unlock their creativity.
My favourite ever Forest player that I've seen in person, Reedy is. Loved him. Absolute magician. Tell us a bit about yourself then in terms of your playing career and your road into coaching before we talk specifically about the FA and what you did to get to Forest. What's your kind of career progression to this point?
Yeah. I was born in the early 70s in Liverpool, which is obviously like Nottingham, a mad football town. I was fortunate to play for kind of district schoolboys, Merseyside schoolboys, and end up at Liverpool as an apprentice, schoolboy and then an apprentice, and then signed 2 years as a pro around 1990. Thoroughly enjoyed my time there. Left 2 years later and went on a free to Barnsley. Enjoyed about 18 months there, which was quite an interesting time. Totally different part of the world, just at the end of the miners' strike. It was a cultural experience for me as a young Scouser, really. And wow, this place, not very miles away from my house, is very different from where I've grown up. And then ended up I had 3 or 4 years at Carlisle, which was good. And then was at Torquay for a couple, and then finished at Exeter and Chester. Got injured about 30 and finished then. As my career was sliding down into journeyman, lower division this. But I enjoyed every minute of my playing career. But I did think from early on I would be better as a coach. I don't know why. I thought that I offered things, empathy and understanding from a player's perspective about what sometimes coaching didn't offer us in that era. So that's when I got into, did a sports science degree in 97, the first distance learning sports science degree that the PFA put on for their memberships. Did that over 5 years with Paul Simpson and Mark Jules and Brian McGorry, a couple of guys who have gone on and had successful careers in either management or outside football. And then I got into coaching, really, not by chance, but I was thinking about what I'd do with my sports science. I thought I really enjoyed the kind of reversing back the playing experiences and thinking about what the theory was behind that. I thought that was fascinating. And then I thought I'd become a PE teacher or something. And I was working in a gym in Shrewsbury just between finishing playing and thinking about what to do next. I started chatting to one of the directors in the gym, and he said, "Come down and do some work with the under-15s." And I was like, "Nah, I'm not into that. Nah, no thanks. I've had enough of year-to-year contracts. I'll crack on and try and maybe become a teacher or do something in academia," which I thought might have suited me more. I'd enjoyed my career. I always felt I was the player in the dressing room who read books and listened to Radio 4, and was a bit different, and I suppose it was not more difficult, but in any culture you got to fit into that to a certain degree, and I wanted to be my true self, and I felt coaching and thinking about some coaching principles and some ideas was good for me and stimulated me at that point. And getting into coaching then, firstly a year part-time and then full-time at Shrewsbury Town was a brilliant experience, and I absolutely loved it. And I've been doing that for the last 21 years, coaching and then coach developing, and sort of linking together like what players do with what what's required from coaching and what the environment looks like to try and help players, I suppose, enjoy what they do. I think that's key, and be motivated by how they operate. And then secondly, try and think how we can get them better from a playing point of view and developing their skill, and then seeing what the coaches do to help support that practice design and the way they interact with the players. And end up here.
You mentioned a few things there. I mean, were you a centre half? Is that right?
Yeah.
A rugged centre half? I don't know. I mean, lower league football sounds pretty a bit like the Wild West. You mentioned Torquay. I read a book. Is it Gary Nelson's book about playing at Torquay? You might even have been there at the time.
Yeah, I had a little few lines in that book. It's not a claim to fame. I get it.
A different world, though, is it, lower league football to what you grew up at Anfield?
Yeah, Liverpool was very much pass and move. I felt privileged to spend 6 years there, 4 years full time, 2 years as a schoolboy. But it was just so simple about pass and move principles. The boot room is still in operation. Ronnie Moran and Roy Evans would talk loudly in the boot room and coach you about what was going on the previous night when the first team were playing, about how we in rush press from the front. The training was all about with the ball. So it's similar to the work that we do here. We're not running for running's sake. We're running with the ball. The game's hard, and you have to run in connection with being good on the football and running off the ball. So some of the bits at Liverpool were absolutely fundamental to me becoming the person I was, or the person I've become, and who I was back then. And also then the football, how it's built my football philosophy. But then also seeing other, like you said about lower division football, how you can win the games in other ways. You got to soak up pressure. There's been games that Forest have had over last season where you have to soak up some pressure and you have to suffer at the right times. You have to be organised to deal with that defensively. So I think the combination of the sort of cultures I've been exposed to over the years, and obviously working at the FA and ultimately on running the pro license and dealing with coaches who worked at clubs in Champions League football and working with some of the national teams, I just feel privileged to have had such a set of experiences with different people from different backgrounds. The combination of all that stuff, it's not, none of the League Two stuff doesn't operate in isolation. It's very similar and different to the sort of work we're doing now. And it's just having a focus and a real thought about how you want to do your work.
You mentioned the work at the FA there, and it sounds like you had a great gig. Was there a part of you when Steve approached you to come join in that you thought, well, club football, it's not exactly the best for job security sometimes, even as well as things are going at Forest? Was it the challenge that enticed you, or was there any reticence to come?
Yeah, I think the greatest compliment I can pay the football club is that when I was here last year, I used to leave my car thinking, I'd like to go back tomorrow. I'd like to go back and see what we're going to do there, because the discussion we'd have about what we're doing with the players, what the coaching sessions look like, feedback and some of the little challenges that we had, were fascinating to me. And I was thinking, what could that look like, day in, day out as you get to know people better. My coaching philosophy is built on relationships, and that can only be, I suppose you can only really maximise them if you really get to know people, understand what makes them tick. So the opportunity to come here and to try and build on those relationships was one that I just couldn't turn down. And reticent maybe, but also I think I'm proud of the work that I've done at the FA for the last 11 years. I think we've done some really good stuff. I've been involved with the EPPP and the kind of establishment of St George's Park as our home of coach development and the home of our national teams, and felt it seemed to be the right time to move on. And you can't work out a calculation for that. It just felt right.
What's Steve like to work with day to day, if you don't mind me asking? Fans hear so much about his brilliant man management, and Gary Birtles, who we mentioned before we started recording, he's watched training sessions and was massively impressed with how good they are. What's Steve like as a person to work with so regularly now?
Yeah, Steve's a very good person. I think his work is built on sound coaching principles, which is getting to know the individuals really well and trying to build trust with them. And that trust is part of the elite environment that we're trying to create. I think what stands out to me, and always has done, is his outstanding coaching skills. We actually first got to know each other about 22 years ago when I was Shrewsbury Town's under-16 coach, and he took Wrexham's under-16s, and he was absolutely passionate back then, and still is now, about developing players and about coaching and about, whatever. The other afternoon we're there till 5 o'clock talking about sessions, about what we're going to do the next day, about the work we're going to do with the players. He's absolutely 100% enthused by the work as a coach and the work to develop the players and to develop the team. And they're the things that come through day in, day out. The potential he's still got as a coach, and I think for lots of coaches I've worked with over the years, you're just thinking, well, there's still things that he can still work on and he wants to work on. And that's why I think, again, coming to the club has been a great opportunity. And, now on none of the coaching staff are thinking that the finished article. We're all trying to develop and get better day in, day out. Steve's the epitome of that.
So if you go back, I think you said 22 years ago, to Wrexham v Shrewsbury, would you have seen yourself going this far in the game? And when you met Steve, did you think this guy's going to go far as well?
I think my Liverpool background would say you just got to do your best every day, and see where that's going to take you. It sounds like a cliche, but you can only live one day at a time. You can only do your best. I just wanted to try and be the best coach I could be then, after being, I suppose, the best footballer that I thought could be. Given the hand I was dealt, physical, psychological, social attributes that I had. And then I thought in coaching, well, who knows where I might end up. I thoroughly enjoyed my early days at Shrewsbury Town. I suppose back then, and I know Nick Marshall's been on this, and he was academy manager at Forest after the sort of Paul Hart era. You do everything. You drive the minibus. You take the kit to the laundry. You take all the groups. The coaches really well. It was a brilliant grounding, and Coop's exactly the same at Wrexham. Obviously, it's a different era now with the EPPP, and the way the funding's increased, quite rightly, for youth development to be able to make sure we get a better set of resources and staffing for our young players. But back then, we were able to throw ourselves into, put lots of hats on. And I think that really helped me back then.
Mm-hmm. And did you think Steve had something about him as you got to know him then? Did it stand out?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think when I saw him at Liverpool, I thought he had a real presence when he became academy manager at Liverpool. And I thought then when he went on to take the 17s at England, there's something about him from a presence point of view that you can't really put your finger on. He's got humility and confidence, and got them in equal measure at the right time. And I think he believes in the players and about what they can do. That's always shone through. And those things, for me, you then think, well, where are we going to end up in coaching? We believe in the players. We've got a sound. He's got a sound knowledge and understanding of the game, tactics and strategies. We do some brilliant analysis work with Steve Rams and the team. We got a pretty nice package, really, in many ways, that epitomises modern coaching. So yeah, the question, did I know? I thought he had huge potential. So it's part of me is very proud of him as well, to see the journey that he's made and the steps that he's made.
So you've come into Forest, and I don't know if you're a direct replacement for Stephen Reid, but it's kind of Stephen leaves, you come in. What's it like being the new kid after someone who's so respected leaves, especially after promotion at Wembley? What was that dynamic like, and were you a bit nervous coming in?
Well, I've taken Stephen Reid on his coaching awards, so that was a bit of a different dynamic between us. So that it didn't feel like I was the new kid coming in, really. And again, that's huge respect to Stephen, who I know Reedy very well over the years, and he's a terrific again, humble, sensitive person. He's been brilliant, I think, at talking about his own, personal struggles over the year. I think he was great at that. I hope I helped in some way, try and tease those things out of him to try and help him be the true, authentic Stephen Reid. So now that I suppose I've worked in football and worked at big sporting organisations where people come and go, and you just got to come in and be yourself. You can't be anyone else. Just try to be myself, and I was trying to establish, me in the building about being me. I'm not there to try and be Stephen Reid number 2. I'm just trying to be Jamie Robinson.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the kind of dynamic between the coaches, because I guess in any work environment, you want people, obviously you're pulling in the same direction, but you don't want to all have exactly the same opinion, exactly the same viewpoints. I guess you and Steve are from kind of a similar school of thought, it sounds like. How does the dynamic work between yourself, Alan, Reedy, and Steve in terms of, if you disagree with something, do you speak up and you thrash it out, and then Steve, like Brian Clough, decides he was right all along?
Yeah, there's definitely a democratic kind of like management work that we're doing, But yeah, you're right. Steve clearly has the right to have the final say and clearly make the ultimate decision. I think it would be wrong of us to not give our opinions, whether he agrees with them or not. We have to be ourselves and offer opinion. But clearly, we've got to come within some sort of tramlines and not be outliers and come up with weird and wonderful, wacky ideas. We've got to agree some sort of framework within which we're going to work. And that's been good putting together. But then also, as you said, we're not sitting there like yes man and saying we agree with everything you're saying. There's some bits where we need to disagree. But we also need to give some observations that other people can't see. So Danny Alcott, the goalkeeper coach, has got a very specific, perspective on the game. And obviously we embrace that and has the opportunity to offer his views on, what's going on high at the pitch as well as what's happening, at the bottom end of the football pitch. And then I think the choice, like you said, though, that's the role of the head coach, the manager, isn't it? To piece together all this information. There's obviously sports science data, there's medical information, there's obviously recruitment work that's been well documented about, revamping and reshaping the squad after the number of loan players that the club had last year. That's all on Steve's plate, and I think he pieces that together really skillfully.
Yeah, how's that going? I mean, obviously a lot of changes. People outside of Nottingham don't seem to realise a lot of enforced changes because half the squad was loan players and Grab's left and Brees has left. How's that bedding in process going? Have you found on the training ground? It must be a lot of work to get through in a short space of time.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of work, but if again, you will have seen when Steve came into the football club, the principles of how the game model looks and how we want to play. That's not changing because new bodies are coming in. It's just sharing those ideas and try and get them, to buy into the system and the way that we want to play. I mean, I think Steve's has articulated the squad changes really intelligently, really, isn't it? As you just said, Matt, number of loans, people out of contract. The squad was always going to evolve this summer, So I don't think there's been any surprises really about the number of changes. I think, like you say in the question, the challenge is, isn't it, about getting those individuals who don't know each other to try and gel and be cohesive and hit the ground running. And obviously, we need time with them to be able to do that. But the clearer our principles can be and how we can share them with the players and how we can be really effective in the way we communicate with the boys who are coming in and the ones that are here to try and help them, like Joe Worrell and Yatesy and Jack Cole, that would be the cultural architects of the environment to try and help share what we do. Then you want to try and accelerate that process a bit, but it does take time.
Is it a different or a harder challenge because you've got lads coming in from the Bundesliga and lads who are coming in from France and different nationalities? Is it any different from bedding in, an English player who's played 400 games in the Championship? Are the principles the same?
Yeah, I think the Premier League is definitely the World League, isn't it? So different to the Championship, which will have, I suppose, English principles at the heart of it. The Premier League is the World League that's based in this country. The Championship is I sort of work at the FA. It's 6th or 7th best league in the world. So we've got 2 of the top 7 best leagues in the world. Bundesliga 2 is down at like 30th, I think, or something. So we're trying to recognise that. I think the league's got a global feel, hasn't it, for the way the football's played. And I think that allows the boys to come in and settle in a little bit more cohesively, because the way we play is not, again, your question at the start about League Two football, where that left side centre half, you had to put it down the channel. There was no way you were going to roll that ball into centre midfield, but that's not the way the game's played now at the top of the Premier League. The teams who've been successful, have clearly had a range of styles over the last few years, but the majority of teams that are playing progressive, technically based football through the thirds has gone through the roof over the last decade. And that showed, I think, in the Premier League clubs' record in Europe. And the way the league looks, I think is allowing the players that we brought in from other clubs and other countries to come and join us and hit the ground running, because I think we play a progressive, fast-flowing, attacking style.
How much of your job then is kind of getting players up to speed tactically, and how much is making sure they're settled in as people and able to be their best on the training ground? Is there a balance to be struck there as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think clearly, first and foremost, we'd be on the field stuff. Would be on and off the field, meaning video and looking at the work that we're doing to try and help the players bed in. That would be my first priority. But obviously, we would link that in, and Steve and the staff, I think, are really good at picking off the guys individually and seeing how they're getting on, have they settled in. Again, I've been really impressed with the club support about how Rachel and other people around the club help the new players come in and show them to different properties and help them set in really, really quickly, because as you're pointing out, it's crucial and it's important. So yeah, it definitely feels as sort of a family element to the way the club's going about helping the players settle in, which can only help them perform on the pitch.
One thing I've asked people a few times around coaching, it's kind of that relationship between coaching someone who, in your no offense, I guess in your case, you didn't play at the highest level, is a better footballer than you. How's that relationship works? Then on the flip side, you've got like Gerrard and Lampard, who are coaching players, especially at Rangers for Gerrard, who are probably not as good as them. How have you found that challenge and overcoming it?
Yeah. I've not been really worried about that, because I grew up with Robbie Fowler and Steve McManaman, who ended up being terrific footballers, and we talk about similar things. So I think you just need to take people as you find them. I've never felt, when I got into coaching and then coaching some of the former England internationals that came on our stuff, like David James and others who are big characters, you just have to take it in your stride, really. Or I think that's part of my skills, will be able to take that in my stride. But I would only try to get to know them. A bit like we're talking about coaching here, try and get to know the individual, what their ambitions were, how we could support them, how we could work together. I think if you're demonstrative and trying to be dictatorial to anyone, I don't think there's people like that. So I think I've tried to help the work I've done as a coach, being built around, some bits around self-determination theory and trying to help people with their ownership and the sense of belonging to a bigger picture. And those things have always helped me recognize that everyone's different. Everyone's an individual, regardless of whether they played whatever Gerrard and Frank play 100 odd times for England, or whether they played for Shrewsbury Town or Torquay United. They're just people who just want to help. You just want to help try and get better.
Does it all come down to relationships and communication then, coaching? Is that the number one skill you've got to have? I've asked Nick this as well, but is that top of the tree if you could have one skill?
It is for me. But when you say, is it the number one skill? I heard Steve Wright on Radio 2 today, and he's quite good at talking, but he wouldn't be a football coach, because you've got to know your stuff as well, So communication is about also linking who you're trying to work with what you're trying to work on them with, if that makes sense, what you're trying to do with them, and then how you're going to communicate that with. So like the who, what, how kind of links together in a little model about, you can't just be a good communicator and I think don't know your stuff, You can't just talk about the game and be obsessed with the game and not to get to know the individual who you're working with. I suppose that little triangle I find fascinating about coaching. And obviously sat in the middle of that triangle is getting to know yourself and getting to know the pressure that you put yourself under and how you talk to yourself about how things are going in the game. Part of my experiences in coaching has been in grassroots and in professional football is that the result and the scoreline is such an overriding determinant about how coaches behave. Whether it's a game down the road from here with the under 12s tonight, the coach has to just keep his or her head and help the players love the game and get better at doing what they're good at. And that's some of the principles I'm trying to build my work on. But then when you're at the performance end, it's more than that. It's how they enjoy it, how they're motivated, how they want to be successful, and ultimately how they want to win, and how we all want to win, because the first team's about winning games.
Is coaching a bit like driving then? When you're a 17-year-old and you pass your test, you think you're brilliant no matter what, and you might have the odd crash like I did, but you have to do 10,000 miles or 10,000 sessions before you're actually any good at it.
Yeah, I feel as though I've had several models about doing the work that you think about how you think, like shaping up. I don't know whether that's the same analogy in driving, because it's not that complex as it wants to get. Once you get to know it, you just do it, don't you? And do it, then you do it instinctively, autonomously. I was thinking coaching, I think you got to think about how you do the work. I think when you're playing, it's much more instinctive. When you coach, there's some thought behind everything you do, every comment you make. You have to be analytical, but you've also got to be passionate. You've got to be able to really think under pressure and think about the right stuff at the right time. And I think if I was saying stuff to coaches, I'd be thinking, just think how you are on the sideline and how you operate, and are you really thinking and really observing what's going on, or are your emotions just running wild?
Let me ask you about the Newcastle game before we come on to West Ham then. I mean, did you learn anything you didn't already know yourself and as a group of coaches after coming away from St James's Park?
Yeah, it was a brilliant learning curve. I think obviously we were disappointed ultimately with the result. I think there's some promising bits about the performance. I think we had some moments in the game where we're thinking we could have built a little bit of momentum. I think the goals came at tricky times for us, and maybe we were thinking when we look back at them, we could be preventable. But we're trying to play, and we're trying to play out. We're trying to be progressive. So yeah, I think we learned a lot. And hopefully the players have learned a lot as well about the level, about the occasion. I think we'll see. I think we'll also be interested when Newcastle finish in the league as well. I think it was an impressive performance from them. They had some good combinations certainly in the wide areas that caused our team some problems. But we've come away thinking, oh yeah, there's lots of positives from that, but and clearly lots of things that we think we can improve on.
Yeah, I thought they were very good. I thought Guimaraes was excellent from what I saw. Obviously, that's the kind of play you're going to come up against, I guess. What have you made of the response from the players in training so far this week? Then is it exactly what you wanted?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's been really exciting, to be honest. Building up to, and we spoke before, didn't we? The atmosphere at the City Ground for the first game back in the Premier League is going to be pretty special, isn't it? And I think the players are generally excited by that. They've worked hard. Obviously it's been a hot all week, but their attitude's been absolutely first class, and the togetherness is there 100%, so I'm just trying to build and focus on the work and not deviate from the plan, and I'm looking forward to Sunday.
How much are you looking forward to Sunday? I know you're saying you went quite a few times last season, and there were some great occasions, and this is going to be up there and perhaps surpass any of them, isn't it?
Yeah. I was fortunate to come over quite a number of times last season, when I was working at the FA and working with the coaches. But yeah, it's going to be pretty special, isn't it? Yeah, I'm excited. But ultimately it's a game of football. It's still going to be 11v11. We'll still have offside. There'll be 2 goals, So it's still going to be what happens on the pitch, which is going to define the result, and hopefully we can do more of the things that we showed moments of doing last week at St James's Park. We can do them a bit more regularly on Sunday and turn in a good performance and a good result.
Yeah, I agree with what you say, but do you think the fans at home, they do make a difference? That's Sheffield United's second leg. I've said this many times on this podcast. The fans did make a big difference there. Does it, from the players' point of view, do they hear that and do they feel that noise?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the players are. Is pride the right word? What would be the word? I suppose the motivation and the enthusiasm you get from playing in such a stadium with such an atmosphere and such supportive crowd. It's definitely a fuel, isn't it? We've got to use as a spirit this season, But we'll still be looking at, specifically, how we're playing through the thirds, what we're doing with our pressing, what's happening when they counter attack us, So you're trying to piece all that together, aren't you, to make sure that we can use suppose, the emotional spirit of the City ground to benefit the players and the performances.
West Ham are good, aren't they? Got some good players. I guess you would say it's about every side. Declan Rice, whoever else. It's a good challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not short of days this week to do our homework, about what they're all about. Obviously, difficult to tell from watching them against City on Sunday whether they'll go with that shape or that team when they didn't have as much, when they hardly had any of the ball. I think you're right. What you said, that there's good players in the Premier League, aren't there? There's good sides. Obviously David Moyes done a terrific job there, alongside Paul Nevin, who I know very well, and some of the other coaching staff that are there. But we can only control our controllables and get ourselves ready and build on our togetherness in the way that we want to play, and we think that's going to be the formula to get results.
Well, I know everyone's going to wish you well and obviously be pulling for a result for Forest. And if it doesn't come, I'm sure no one's going to panic. They certainly shouldn't, because Forest are in a good place. And it feels like everything's moving in the right direction at the football club. Jamie, thank you very much for joining us. I do appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
And we shall be back on Monday with Gary Birtles and Mikey Clark, and we'll discuss the West Ham game. And as I say, hopefully it's 3 points for Forest. So thanks very much, everyone. And we'll see you soon.